afternoon and welcome to Sport On. This is a weekly sport program, which is a discussional program that comes to you every Thursday at this time of the day. A lot is expected on the program, and straight away I'll just introduce my, of course, guest in the studio. Remember, about almost a month or more than a month ago, the president indeed opened up two sport disciplines, and that's golf as well as tennis. In the studio today, we've got the Zambia Golf Union President, Christopher Mlenga. Chris, it's good to have you on the program.
Thank you, Kelvin.
The gentleman's game is back.
Yes, it's back. Yeah,
Great.
Coming on slowly.
So if anything, Chris has a lot to talk to us and to tell us in terms of golf. And if anything, how is golf unfolding after the tee-off was noted by the president amid the COVID-19?
Okay, what is called the new normal, basically. We started first and foremost after our engagement with the government leadership through the Minister of Sports. We started to open up slowly, and this was first by getting to have all the clubs abide by the public safety regulations and guidelines, and secondly to have all the clubs to start first with the social golf. So we have had all the clubs, I think, most of them are very active in terms of social golf. And a week ago, last week, I think I called a full ZGO meeting to review the situation, and we had a meeting, of course, via the now famous Zoom, and we made the serious resolutions. So one of the major resolutions that was passed was that we must begin to accept and appreciate the fact that we might have to live with COVID. And the question to ask is what is it that we can do to go back to normal, but within the guidelines? That is, we review the situation and see if we can get the programs to start, get the golfing activities to start, but without crossing the line. And this is where we are. Last week we engaged the clubs, and we initially have started with monthly medals. Clubs are now allowed to do monthly medals, and the club championship tournaments. Okay. Then we want to review the situation again and see if we can thereafter step another gear into having to roll back with the full fixture.
Okay, great. I believe with that news, all the golfers out there should be very excited. I believe that the clubhouses, as you've said, they're now opened, but there's always one big thing that has always been on the mind of every golfer, especially for the professional golfers. I know the question they're itching to ask is, what is the latest on the Zanaco Masters?
I expected this question. Like I mean, it's
of course, this is a question that I've been receiving everywhere from a golfer. I mean, those that are caddies.
Yeah, Kelvin, it's sad to say we are in June, and half year is gone, and half activities of the year have not been done. Meaning we have lost quite a lot of activities. But I'll talk about the two tournaments that are under the Sunshine Tour, Zanaco Masters and the Zambia Open.
The Zambia Open.
Yeah. So in the country we've got two. One hosted by Nkana Golf Club, Zambia Open, and another one hosted by the Lusaka Golf Club under the Zanaco Masters. I'm sad to inform you that Zambia Open, that was supposed to have been hosted by Nkana Golf Club around April, has not been postponed but has been cancelled, totally cancelled.
probably next year?
We have another next year, of course, God willing, but for this year, it's cancelled. And as for Zanaco Masters, there's still some glimmer of hope, because we have just postponed it again further to, we've put it to October. And we are all thinking by that time, South Africa will be open, because as you know, this tournament is sanctioned by Zambia Golf Union and the Sunshine Tour of South Africa, who hold the brand actually. And if South Africa will remain closed by that time, it will also be cancelled, unfortunately.
Okay.
But we are very pessimistic, very optimistic.
Great. I believe that for a golf, especially for those that are on the Copper Belt, it's disappointing news that the Zambia Open, which is normally hosted at Tinkana Golf Club, has now finally been put off, probably to next year, like the president is explaining here. Yeah. But there's still a bit of hope in terms of the Zanaco Masters. But finally, before I let you off the hook, President, how serious the schools and youth golf programs in terms of golf?
Yeah, like I said earlier, we've lost half the year. At our inaugural, my inaugural meeting,
club is Zambia's latest golf club and the fourth
of ZGU. We had our maiden meeting, ZGU meeting in January. We planned big to get down to work, and we're going to do a lot of activities, most of them impacting on the issue that you have just touched on. But not all hope is lost. We still have 6 months. We are hoping to, like the president said, the new normal, we might have to live with it. COVID might be here for many months to come.
There's a lot of action there from the younger ones. You can see there was, that is at Bonanza there, when you have the Zambia, is it the first Open at that club?
That was the inaugural Bonanza Open. And of course I participated in this tournament. But I left it for the young ones, like the Sondash, to win. It was very good tournament, because it was inaugural for the Bonanza.
And this is your talent identifying program?
Yes, of course. Look, we're doing a lot of golf development. Talk about Sondash himself, the winner, who won the inaugural Bonanza Open. This is a young man that we picked from Chiburuma Golf Club as a very young junior. We took him into South Africa, got trained as a coach. Right now is the one in the ZGU training program as a coach. So we have developed our own. He was in South Africa for over 3 years, and he's quite trained.
I mean, was he having a scholarship in terms of golf?
Yes, sponsored by Zambia Golf Union.
Ah, great.
There were two actually, Mwaliko Sondash and Mukuka Mwango.
Okay.
Yeah.
So those are the future golfers to take over the Madelisom tiers?
Yes, we've sung a lot of that Madelisom tier song. We've sung it for too long.
For too long.
But we need to get a lot more Madelisom tiers, new Madelisom tiers to come on board. And we've lost 6 months, back to the drawing board.
Okay, great. Thank you very much, President. Unless there's something you feel you need to add, which we've left on this interview.
Just a caution to the golfers. We should not allow ourselves to cross the red line. As we play golf, let's observe the rules, public health regulations and guidelines as promulgated by the two SIs, SI 21 and 22. Social distancing. Let's sanitize our caddies. We've allowed caddies now to also work so they can earn income. And let's it's us to make or break.
Okay.
Let me say that.
Great. Thank you very much, President.
Thank you very much, Kelvin.
Thank you for coming.
I'm happy to be here.
Wow,
Hope
always happy to host you.
Thank you.
Of course, as you're about to get into full action, we'll invite you before you actually get into full action in terms of golf.
I'll invite you on the golf course.
Of course, I mean, I'm ready to play with you.
Yeah. You know, the COVID has taught us a lot of things.
Mm.
We can do it remotely on the golf course.
How? In the fairway there?
We can.
On the greens?
We can find a way. ZNBC coverage.
Okay,
thank you very much.
Thank you very much, President. I was talking to the Zambia Golf Union President, and that is, of course, Christopher Mlenga, who was with me in the studio. And golf, as just like tennis, are the two, sport disciplines that have been officially, given a green flag to go on. But we hope to see the actual, now sport competitions in terms of tennis and golf. Well, before we get to a break, for now, shortly we'll be talking to the Zambia Sports Fans Association's SPOFA patron, Pastor Peter Makembo, as of course, that is an area where there's a lot of noise when it comes to football, but not anymore. But to get the details, we'll be shortly joined by the SPOFA indeed patron, and that's Pastor Peter Makembo. Join me after this short break. Welcome back. You're watching Sport On. This is a weekly sport program. It's a discussion program that comes this time of the afternoon. Quite a lot to stay around for, as we have a number of things to discuss and to watch. Earlier on, I said I will be inviting the SPOFA patron, and that's Pastor Peter Makembo, who actually is already in the studio. And besides Pastor, he will be the first communications manager himself, and that is Sydney Mungala. But for now, gentlemen, welcome to Sport On.
Thank you very much, Kelvin, and good afternoon, viewers.
Pastor?
Good afternoon, and good afternoon, viewers.
Okay, great. I know I'll first start with Pastor, because Pastor is an aggrieved man as it stands. But aggrieved in the sense that he will no longer be in those stands, but he actually understands the situation, why he will not be in those stands. Pastor, how do you think indeed the soccer fans are coping up with the COVID-19?
Yeah, you see, as fans, we adjust ourselves very quickly indeed. And for us, we don't train. We don't need to acclimatize.
Don't need to train.
Whenever there's such kind of situations, we just change our atoms, the body atoms.
The body atom,
they
the
just
body
change
language.
into the system. So that has affected us a lot. But knowing to say that affection is not only on Zambian soil, it's globally. And where it's globally, we need to adjust into it. As we are moving into it, I'm very happy that the fans have done their homework. They've done everything in conjunction with the Ministry of Sport. And in return, the Ministry of Sport, they're also consulting their counterpart, who are the Ministry of Health.
Health.
So they're making sure to say they are coming in to put what we want ourselves to see them putting on. And we don't doubt them at all. Because apart from being the SPOFA patron, I'm the life member there. So I understand the mechanism there to say they're really pushing what they're supposed to push. And further, when the project is off the globe, they need also to attach the fans there, because fans and players, we are inseparable. So in their proposals, when we move in, the fans part, it has to be there.
Of course.
As fans, we don't move into much activity like the players do. The players are the ones who are involved so much in the physical confrontations there. With us fans there, at times there are those who just sit, enjoy the watch. There are those like me, I just move in my chimwemwe dance with my dancing group. In fact, we even propose ourselves to say, players, they won't even like the support. Because I'll be there. We will be there, standing for all those teams in case of the double headers in their project.
So we'll be drumming up the brass band throughout.
Throughout. We have done so with the AFCON under 20 here. So the players, they won't even like anything at all.
So the noise will be there.
The noise will be there.
Only that will be the brass band noise.
It will be the brass band noise.
Not the fans noise.
If also that proposal can be accepted through us to the Minister of Health.
To allow the brass
To
band.
allow the brass band. In case the players may say, No, we want the fans. Makembo will be there. That noise which you need, it's unchangeable. It will just be floating into there. So you won't even miss much.
Okay. So, Pastor, what do you think could be the implications of playing without fans in the terraces?
It may not go well with fans, because fans were used for our teams. In case of that, I'm sure also fans, the way they're moving on, they're making sure to say they spice that angle. Because in the area where a fan moves on, a player, when he touches the ball, he wants to hear the roar of a fan to say, yes. So it energizes him. So with this kind of the disease which has just floated on our land, we need to adjust into it. Because it's not just a matter of releasing. It's a lifespan here. It's a life, God's people there. The life of the lives of the people there. That is what we're interested in. Even fans, they would have said we're in power. Just go and play. But they're also looking at that power which they have on the lives of the people, because it's a deadly disease. It kills. It doesn't choose whether you're who. When it enters, the ending result is death. So I don't want to lose anyone at all, because very soon when we're at the...
So it'll be like those empty...
that is what we don't want. We're not used to that. I'll be somewhere there. So that the players feel to say, okay, fans, I represent the fans. Because you see, Kevin, the danger is again on the fans. If you allow unruly fans, when something does not go well on their team, they will be behaving like the way those misguided fans behave. So with us, we don't move into that. We spice the game. So they need to be monitored. The leaders of those fans, they need to be monitored, because the enemy's behavior, that coronavirus will just enter into that person. And once it enters, the whole of that group has to be quarantined. And in the next game, they won't be there, because another group has to come in. Equally with the players. If one is found as a victim, it's the entire two teams that will be quarantined, including the technical bench, including the referees. It is something which they need to tread very, very, very carefully indeed, looking at what could be other side effects which FAS have taken into consideration in conjunction with the Minister of Sport and the Minister of Health.
Okay, great. But before I let you go, Pastor, what solution can you offer to chair a team during this period of the COVID?
Remain within the framework of the guidelines. Very simple indeed. The guidelines are there being given by the Minister of Health, which by now I'm sure fast they're moving into it. Once they're ready, they'll release. By the way, I'll be moving with my mask. Whenever I find you fans there, you won't lack anything at all. First, they're working something on a mask. They briefed me. So we'll be enriching those marks to the fans. Where we'll find you, we'll give you, so that we safeguard the future of ourselves.
And the lives.
And the lives.
Great. Pastor, we will shortly be calling upon you again, because shortly the games will hope, and we believe that the games will actually, come back to the new normal by kicking off again. So we hope for the restart of the games. And we were talking to Pastor Peter Makembo, who is a SPOFA president, and the SPOFA is Zambia Sports Fans Association. So we hope to have him again on the program in the subsequent programs just in the near future. But after that, let's now talk about the football house. A lot is happening there as the Drug Enforcement Commission, DEC, last Thursday pounced on FAS General Secretary Adrian Kashala's office at Football House on drugs and money laundering related issues, and walked away with vital IT components to help them with the investigation. So let us look back to last week and understand what happened at Football House before I engage the FAS communications manager, as we spoke to the DEC spokesperson, Triza Katoko.
On the 11th of June 2020, through our anti-money laundering investigations unit, DEC did conduct an operation at the Football Association of Zambia. This is involving Mr. Adrian Kashala. Now, Mr. Kashala is being investigated for obtaining pecuniary advantage and money laundering offenses. And in the process of our investigations, we did seize a laptop as well as a CPU, just basically to assist us with our investigations. We also wish to clarify that when we went to the Football Association of Zambia, we went to a specific office and not the entire Football Association of Zambia offices. We specifically went to Mr. Adrian Kashala's office, and that's where the CPU and the laptop were seized in the process. We wish to assure members of the public that the Commission remains committed to executing its duties in a fair and professional manner.
That's the Drug Enforcement Commission, and that's the spokesperson. This is Triza Katongo. And of course, you've heard. And for now, I've got the communications manager. We're supposed to have Adrian Kashala in the studio this afternoon, but unfortunately, he is very, very committed at the moment with the Minister of Sport as well as the Minister of Health, where they are working around the clock to ensure that the new normal is put into practice in terms of football, as they are in consultation with the government in terms of the resumption of the league. And as earlier promised, I've got the communications manager, and this is Sydney. Sydney, it's good to have you on the program.
Thank you very much, Kelvin. Good afternoon.
I don't know at what point that deck operation did happen on Thursday. Was it after this studio interview we had, or before? Because at the end of the day, I mean, we had that scenario.
In between my coming here and going back, unfortunately, that's when that issue happened. And when I got to the office, that's when I learned of what had happened. So I'm sure the question that was on the minds of many other people when they saw that, I think we've just listened to a clarification there.
Yeah.
Yes. So everyone is saying, but where are the drugs issues coming from? I think the background is that they came through the office after having interviewed our General Secretary at their offices, and then they produced a search warrant that had those specifications that they were looking for drugs and narcotics. So I don't know how else we were going to coin how that warrant, that search warrant was coined. So I think we told that story based on what happened on our part, and of course we can only tell what happened because we are part of this story. So that is where the drug story was coming from, and she did come through with a clarification the following day that in fact they were not investigating him in relation to drugs, but for taking pecuniary advantage of his position when he was, I think, Director of Sports in the Zambia Police many years back. So obviously the questions to the people who just who are watching from a distance is if this issue is about someone having been at Nkwazi, then why come to Football House and probably grab a laptop that he uses for his duties as General Secretary of FAS, and also the CPU for his the desktop for his personal assistant? So those are some of the questions that probably other people would actually ask, but it is not for us to answer because we are not the people that seized those gadgets. So we'll just wait for the investigation to go, and as we pledged in our statement, I think the idea is we'll cooperate with the law enforcement agencies, because at the end of the day we are law abiding. Great.
Are operations back to normal?
Well, I think the General Secretary has been back in the office, but obviously they haven't yet retained his tools, and even the personal assistant is also still operating without those gadgets. So from that perspective, I think we are still operating in that zone where everything is not yet back to normal, because those are important tools that they use on a day-to-day basis in their work.
Okay, great. Any feedback yet from the deck?
Well, I think since they left with those gadgets, I think it's up to them to determine whether they've found what they are looking for, or whether or not they've decided to hand back the items. But we just have to wait. That is beyond our control.
Great. So I'm sure by now everybody must have heard that the Football Association of Zambia FAS was raided by the DEC over what Sydney is explaining. But away from there, Sydney, now let's look at the football itself. I know Adrian Kashala, who was indeed raided in that, of course, by the DEC in search of whatever they are looking for in terms of, is it money laundering, or is it the drugs-related offences? Now let's look back to the resumption of football. I mean, any update regarding the resumption of the Zambian football?
Well, I think there has been a lot of positive energy coming out, I think, from the head of state, first of all. He did indicate that he has also received cries from soccer fans and everybody involved in football who has demanded that probably football should also be given a leeway to open. And that has been followed through by the minister. I think the Minister of Sport gave an interview where he was saying he has been engaging the Minister of Health and also as well as FAS. So these meetings have been going on, I think, from Friday last week, and they've continued even as early as this morning. The General Secretary and the Deputy General Secretary were at a meeting with the Minister of Health and also Minister of Sports. They are trying to just conclude and see how best probably this football can take off. And the Minister of Health is a key stakeholder in everything that is going on. So you may have been made aware in the last few days that there was a communication from FAS going to clubs to avail contacts for their medical personnel, and also the teams to also indicate where their camp houses or wherever they camp, those places are. I think it's part of trying to check and see whether these places would be habitable or they will meet the conditions that are being asked for by the health authorities. So that is what has been going on, and I think we should be able to come back to the nation in the next few days in terms of the specifications of what's going to happen. But we are still desirous that football should be back, I think, by the second half of July, and that is obviously mid-July. Playing games behind closed doors remains the option. I think I heard the pastor here lamenting about not being allowed to come for games. But I think the situation is such that I think we have to, first of all, wait and see how this is going to work before we begin to dream of bringing soccer fans to the stadium. So let's do the first step, then the other things will follow.
Very quickly, Sydney, before we talk about the Nations League, the Eden Universe National League, I mean, a quick one in terms of the Chipolo Polo and the women national team that qualifies to the Olympics and the Chipolo Polo preparations. What is on the ground? And I made it?
Well, I think fortunately CAF has indicated that probably inter-club competitions will begin in September. That's an indication of maybe the CHAN and probably Africa Cup qualifiers coming on stream. So the coach is already working on that to reactivate his program. Maybe he's thinking about a camp or something. He has married those programs with the women. He's coordinating the coaches for the women, especially the team that qualified for the Olympics. So we are still very much hopeful that the girls will be ready and the men teams will also be ready when those competitions resume. Okay,
great one. I've got Tandika Chira here. Very quickly, Tandika, what would you analyze from what Sydney has said before we get to talk about the National League? And
well,
a minute.
We spoke multiple things, but I think what I'll pick is the raid on FAS. And I think it has left a dent, that's a bad image, because if they're investigating Aden Kashar as an individual, they could have gone and raided his home. They could have gone to Nkwazi, where these records are. But we also understand that this matter was reported to the police, who have been looking into it last year in December. So I don't know how the two organs collaborate in terms of this. So I think that it's sad that FAS has been left partially paralyzed because what they've done, and I think I would just call upon them for me to be professional and ensure that this football-related issue does not catch the eye of FIFA, because it can attract an instant ban as things are.
Okay, great one. Well, we are watching Sport On, and this is your weekly program that comes to you this time of the day. And now, today we'll talk more on the prospects of promotions and demotions in the Eden Universe National Division 1 League. And of course, one of the guidelines in the new normal is social distancing, as football teams will be required to have big buses to transport sportsmen and women to various places and venues with enough space on board as part of the health requirement. In the same vein, the government recently bought buses for the defense and security departments to ease transport challenges, where the Zambia Correctional Service received a fleet of 45 luxury buses. In turn, the Correctional Service Command recently donated a luxury bus to the Prison Leopards Football Club in their promotion quests. And we've got more from Msenge Mulimba, our colleague from Kitwe.
They are on the verge of making their third comeback to the Elite League. Kawe-based Prison Leopards Football Club will have themselves to blame if they let this opportunity slip away. Though they have been on top of the table, it has not been easy, as transport has been an issue. That problem has been sorted out.
At times we go beyond, by allowing them even to travel. And they used to travel in, vans and overloaded. But we have buses now.
I'm proud to mention to you that Prison Leopards is one of the best sponsored team in the national division. And I can also mention to you that we are competing with all the best teams in the Premier League.
And the club chairman has promised not to disappoint after this gesture.
I wish to assure you, sir, that we will ensure that the team gets a slot in the Super League.
Those that follow the club closely also want results.
The football team, we've come here to witness receiving a bus. Is not only a football team for the correction facility and inmates alone, but it's also helping the community at large.
Msenga Mlimba, Northern News Sports in Kitwe.
That is Msenga Mlimba from indeed the Copper Belt. Gentlemen, besides, of course, Tandika, I've got Muyunda Nyambe. What Muyunda? What that say?
Ansha, which was Chan.
Ansha. I know there's a lot talked about in terms of the Super Division. Now let's dwell down to the National League. I mean, you saw that package which Musenge did there. What, from the grapevine, I've heard is that now, from one of the guidelines from the Ministry of Health, will be that you will no more use the highest buses in terms of going to, games because of social distancing. So big buses will be encouraged. So we'll see, of course, a fleet of buses. I mean, on the run shortly, which will see teams to get new buses. Yeah. I know service teams like Green Buffaloes should be also unveiling theirs shortly. I'm told Nkwaze also has a new bus. They should be unveiling theirs shortly. We can't wait to have all those buses to be shown to the viewers out there. And so is the Green Eagles. So most of these teams under the Department of Security and Defense are, of course, promised big and new buses. And we can't wait to see what will be unveiled to other teams.
Yeah, but look, of course, the new normal comes with its own, conditions, like we're saying, and the health comes first. And when you look at some of the teams that have the financial muscle to be able to, procure or buy new buses as per, the new norm that has come through, of course, we'll see some teams managing. We'll see some teams still struggling. And, of course, they might go on and engage further. And probably there could be, a secondary option where they can ask if they can use two buses, to state that probably maybe you have half of the number in this bus and half of the number on the other bus, based on the fact that you're still following the, the social distancing even on the buses. But nevertheless, I think these are some of the things that we need to expect, and these are some of the things that need to be, complied with. And going forward, we are hoping for the best. But kudos to some of these defense wings where they've already started, and it shows you that there's so much involved and they're so much committed to sponsoring and supporting these clubs. But it's a challenge also, and we need to challenge the players to make sure that when your employers are doing that for you, I think you need to go an extra mile to show them and to appreciate by trying to transform those results on the pitch. So at the end of the day, we're going to wait and see what Prison Leopards will have to offer.
Tandika, the acquisition of that bus, do you think it's a motivation factor to Prison Leopards? They are at the moment at the top together with the young Green Eagles, who are jointly on 37 points.
Yeah, it is a motivation. It's something you didn't expect, now you have. There's a way in which you have that sense of pride, be driven in a Marco Polo type bus. Yeah,
luxury bus.
Yeah, luxury, and it raises
from a truck into a bus.
Well, definitely. Those are the changes we are seeing, and I think this new normal has brought up something which clubs may have to live with, but also it is telling ourselves to think outside the box and get the best of what we have and what we can do. So we have seen so many innovations here and there, and we hope that they can raise, and at this point when they come in the Super League, they'll be able to stay, unlike again they are demoted, they go down. I think they must learn from their previous mistakes which they made, and they shouldn't repeat those mistakes when they come. So I hope they've documented the lessons they've learned, and they shouldn't to go the same path. And we hope that they can compete favorably now. The fact that they've also got a better sponsor, and so many things have changed.
A quick one, Young Eagles. Also, do you think they can make it? But if they were to make it, I know there's an issue of club licensing.
Yeah, yes, but I think truth be told, the Super League is just a different animal altogether. And for me, the expectations are so high. Look at the likes of Cabo Youth, Soccer Academy and a couple of other teams, Nakambala. They've been bouncing back into the Super League, but they've failed to, sustain themselves due to a lot of things. Of course, you look at the quality of players, the style of play, the demands, and a couple of things, that come with it. So it's not going to be easy for Young Green Eagles, Prison Leopards, and the other teams. They need to strengthen as much as possible for them to be able to stay and compete at the highest level. You have the likes of Unkana, Zanaco, Zesco, and these are the big guns that are in there. They'll intimidate you easily. So
also
really
waiting in the wings.
Exactly.
In Denny, Quito United.
Yeah, it's not going to be
Prison Leopards or Young Green Eagles Forters.
Yeah, it's not going to be easy, and that's the beauty of this, the Eden, University League, due to the fact that there is, a prize money, attached to it, and you can really see the competition levels have even, hyped, and at the end of the day, you and I don't even know who is going to nick it at the, when the league comes to an end. So it's all to play for.
And I think, Kelvin, those who would have more of the thirst are the Indian people, the oil men. Sometimes they work their way up, then they become oily, they sleep, become sleepers. So wait and see this time.
Great one. Okay, great. When you talk about football, you never actually exhaust time, and time is always not our best ally when it comes to talking about football in sports in general. But there is a big news and a big, discussion in terms of who has scored the most goals in terms of the Zambian League. A lot will still say Godfrey Ucar Chitalu. But let's wait and hear. You could be right, yes, it's Godfrey Ucar Chitalu. And now the argument is on how many goals is what now we are going to discover. But it has been now 8 years since Zambians officially began calling for the recognition of the goal-scoring machine and prolific striker Godfrey Ucar Chitalu's record as the world's highest goal scorer in one calendar year. The World Soccer Governing Body, FIFA, washed its hands by stating that it does not keep domestic record, but only international competitions under its wings. FIFA spokesperson Alex Stone told the BBC in 2012 that the highest goal-scoring record for Chitalu in one calendar year was not a FIFA record, but a record for the media. And of course, he goes on to say a lot, indeed, will still be, investigated and found about. But UK-based journalist and author Satish Sekar has been following this matter keenly and has written several articles supporting the recognition of Ucar on the world stage. Satish joins us in studio through Skype from South Africa. And of course, good afternoon, Satish.
Hello.
How are you today, Satish?
Yeah. Hello, it's Satish.
Great. Satish, what prompted you to embark on this journey of seeking justice for Godfrey Ucar Chitalu?
What made me start? It was the fact that when he broke the record, it wasn't properly acknowledged in the first place, and there's clear evidence that he had set at least 107 goals. But that is actually an injustice to him because he actually scored more than that. And in my research on it, it became very clear that Lionel Messi and Gerd Müller will go down in history as two of the greatest players to ever play the game. But the record for the most number of goals in a season and the most number of goals in a calendar year belongs to Godfrey Ucar Chitalu. So I started looking at it, and the more I looked at it, the more I found out that it was an absolutely terrible injustice to his memory. He didn't just set two records in 1972. He also broke the African Cup of Champions clubs records for the most number of goals in a tie and most number of goals in a match. Now, these are the missing goals of his calendar year. So I got started with it because I knew about those goals, and I knew it should have been 116 for the calendar year, not 107.
Satish, who are you targeting to reach with your articles?
I'm doing these articles because I want both Zambia and Africa to recognize that Godfrey Chitalu is one of the all-time greats, both of Zambia and of Africa, and that I'm pitching these articles to the whole of Africa to recognize that he is their great son and the greatest striker they ever produced. Now, that isn't to detract from others who, in the modern era. That is simply saying that he scored 79 international goals, and he was an absolute phenomenon. And he's somebody who should be cherished, not just by Zambia, but by the whole of Africa.
Great one. But why do you think there has been this resistance to recognize Godfrey Ucar Chitalu?
Well, part of the resistance is within Zambia, there are some people who advocate other players, and they think that it detracts from their own heroes. But even these people's heroes is Chitalu. He's one of the all-time greats, and it doesn't detract from the legacy of any Zambian player or any African player to acknowledge that he stands head and shoulders above as an African icon. To give you an example, in the 1970s, after 6 years of representing Zambia, people thought Chitalu was finished. He plays on and off for the national team. Then he comes back, and the second half of his career, he scores 36 goals in the first half of his international career and 43 in the second. But the 43 in the second is in only 45 months. So when he's supposed to be finished, he actually becomes more prolific than he was during the first half when everybody feared him.
So Satish, before I let you go, what do you want to see at the end of this all?
I want to see Zambia recognize Chitalu by giving him a Lifetime Achievement Award, mainly for his family, but I want to see his clubs do that, and eventually I hope that CAF itself will posthumously give a Lifetime Achievement Award to Godfrey Chitalu. He is a legend of African football, and it's time he was acknowledged as such.
Well, Satish, thank you very much. We hope to get on to you again next week, because there are a few more other details which I feel you still need to tell the public out there. So thank you very much, Satish.
Well, before I go, I am doing a series of articles about Chitalu in particular. You can see it on www.fittedin.org. There are 11 articles so far, and there will be more.
Thank you very much, Satish. We hope to actually get to you again next week.
Yeah, no problem.
Thank you very much. And that is, of course, UK-based sport journalist, of course, Satish Shekhar, who is indeed doing the research in terms of Godfrey Ucar Chitalu. But before I engage the Football Association of Zambia, or before we get to the next item, it's still on Godfrey Ucar Chitalu. Probably, a quick one. Yeah. I mean, on Godfrey Ucar Chitalu.
My question is, look, I know we tried at some point, but where have we been? Because, look, we've had a media in our own backyard that, has been there, and that has, solid information, and they've really gotten, that information that we needed to have. We shouldn't have waited for somebody somewhere to start reminding us to say, this is your icon, this is your prize, this is your diamond. So for me, I think it's a wake-up call. We need to get back and make sure that, look, we have to challenge CAF, we have to challenge FIFA, we have to challenge whoever is there so that we can produce the necessary documentation that should be able to prove that this person indeed deserves, the recognition that he never got at a time when, Mother Zambia was playing, its football there at that level, yes.
Great one. And of course, we've got, indeed, Godfrey Ucar Chitalu played under Cabo Warriors Football Club. And we've got the chairperson for Cabo Warriors Football Club. This is, of course, Hayden Dingo. Hayden, welcome to Sport On.
Thank you, Calvin.
Great. Cabo Warriors has named Royal Stadium after Godfrey Chitalu. Is there anything else you can plan to do for the man who helped the club sweep all silverware in 1972 soccer season?
Yeah, Calvin, I think, you know, the naming of the stadium has been within the football circle. I don't think we have really formalized the actual naming of the stadium to Godfrey Ucar Chitalu. I remember it was started by our former chairman, Andrew Kamanga, who started the process, but I think we have not really honored him, Ucar, enough and made, you know, a big event of the actual naming of the stadium. Obviously, it's something we have to discuss with Zambia'S, who are the owner of the stadium. I think you are aware that Zambia'S and Cabo Warriors are synonymous, so it's something that we'd like to make official. You know, make the Godfrey Ucar Chitalu Stadium, you know, formalize the whole process. Yeah.
So as a club, I know you've got this big history behind it through Godfrey Ucar Chitalu. I mean, as a club, how do you feel about it?
Say that again, Calvin, I didn't get you.
I mean, as Cabo Warriors, you've got Royal Grounds as the Godfrey Ucar Chitalu Stadium. How do you feel as a team that has that heavy brand of Godfrey Ucar Chitalu as Cabo Warriors?
Yeah, I mean, it's an honor to be associated with Godfrey Ucar Chitalu. You know, players like him don't come in a generation. They actually come, you know, after centuries. So as Cabo Warriors, we're extremely proud to be associated with Godfrey, with Ucar. And I think we need to honor him more. And I think we've got an event coming up when the league opens that will give him the proper honors that he deserves.
Okay, thank you very much, Hayden, for coming through. And we hope to indeed continue chatting again next week, because there's two more other things we need to exhaust.
Thanks very much, Calvin.
Thank you very much.
Have a good day.
Great. And that was the Cabo Warriors Football Club chairperson, Hayden Dingo, speaking to us from Kabwe. And if time allows and permits, we'll be talking to Godfrey Ucar Chitalu's daughter, Msonda, shortly. But before we do that, let me just find out from the Football Association of Zambia, as far as, of course, what are you doing in terms of Godfrey Ucar Chitalu?
I think before I say what we are doing, I think it's important to give credit to the people that have been doing this work at a great cost to themselves. I think you saw Satish there, but there's also another Zambian who has given himself to this cause. I know Jerry Muchimba. I think he has even done a whole lot of research that culminated into a book. He's one of the people that I think in 2012 petitioned FAS and to write to FIFA with evidence of all those 107 goals. So that petition was forwarded to FIFA. And right now, I think that debate has been reignited, and we've managed to send through that same correspondence to CAF. Great. So we are going very slowly because they've been demanding a lot of things, and that's part of the evidence that we require to put together so that our case is irrefutable.
Great. So, of course, as we continue talking about the great Zambian great footballer of all times and the most scorer in terms of goals, the Godfrey Ucar Chitalu, we've got, I mean, his daughter, of course, that is Musonda. Musonda, welcome to Sport On. Of course, we seem not to have Musonda on air, but of course, very quickly, Sydney, as they say charity begins at home, does FAS have any plans to honor this prolific striker posthumously? A quick one before we go.
Well, I can't say exactly what has been done or what will be done. I think this is a burden that goes beyond football. I think he carried the shoulders of the entire country. And just to weigh in on the debate, I think you know that his record that was 107 goals that was acknowledged was in 68. They did acknowledge that he scored 78 8 goals that surpassed Pele's record. That one was acknowledged, but the one that they have refused to acknowledge is the one that is most significant. So I think we will go deeper as we go in trying to probe some of the details around these records.
Great. Wanyambe, under a minute probably due to time, and I know time is not best ally.
I think personally I will not forgive Sydney and Faz if at all they don't pursue this matter, to the latter. Definitely just has to be, the justice has to be done, in short. Yeah.
And in terms of Godfrey Ucar Chitalu himself?
Yeah, I think, look, it goes without saying. These are great men that, we need to, remember in the history books, and going forward, we need to be talking about them every now and then. And there's nothing much that has been said, and it's disappointing that, we didn't do much. This is when we're trying to wake up and, do something. But it's never late, and we can still, push and do something going forward. So we are hoping for the best as we take on this, challenge together. Like Sydney is saying, it's for the entire country, and we need to support the cause.
Great.
Yeah.
Sydney, under 30 seconds?
Well, I think everyone remains anxious about football coming back. We have a lot of good things coming our way, and I think in the next few days, people should expect that the game of football should be fully back.
Did you say next few days?
The announcement.
Okay, yes.
The next few days,
the announcement.
We have a big announcement.
I was almost quoting him, so now that is clarified.
Great. Thank you very much for watching Sport On. I hope that you can join us next week again as we come with more of some exciting sport news and everything to do with Sport On, Sport On. On behalf of everybody involved in this production, this is Kevin Kasama saying good afternoon. Enjoy the rest on your national broadcaster. Is God bless and goodbye.